When the Canucks miss the playoffs again.
When Jim Benning trades away all our picks.
When Goldalden is scratched for the third game in a row. C4 is there. With Sedin-like vision, Horvat's work ethic, and Petey's electric personality. Here comes the C4 Canucks Hockey Podcast with Chris, Matt, Anna, and Adam.
Powered by Overtime Media.
Well, the Vancouver Canucks have weathered a brutal November, so to speak, and are inching closer to a fully healthy roster, and we are solving the question about how we are going to fix their lineup. It is the C4 podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com. We are live on Discord. A special hello to the patrons who are listening live. It is Monday night. We are recording tonight's podcast in the middle of the Vancouver Canucks contest against the Philadelphia Flyers as they continue their season-long 6-game road trip halfway through.
It does feel like it's a whole season long.
And it is Matt Lee, and that is Anna Forsyth. You can follow her at aforsyth03 on Twitter. You can follow me at mattlee_61. Chris Golden at Lightforce, wrapped up with other duties as always. And Adam Oveno Carter working.
Who knows where he is?
Again, get the happy hour special at... Where's the place he works at again? Near Waterfront? Yeah, that's the one. Steamworks. Thank you.
Who knows if he's still alive?
I am not a good company man. Anna, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
It's been a while. One whole week.
It's been a whole week.
Whole 168 hours.
Daily.
How are you? Have you been to any games lately? No, because the Vancouver Canucks have been on the road.
Yeah, and they'll be on the road forevermore.
The Vancouver Canucks halfway through, like we mentioned, that 6-game road trip, which will conclude, I believe, this Saturday against the Edmonton Oilers.
Correct.
So
and then we're home against them on Sunday.
And then they're back entertaining those same Edmonton Oilers on Sunday night. We'll talk about the road trip so far, what we've learned, so to speak, from those first 3 games of the road trip. Anything's changed, how we feel about the Vancouver Canucks and their playoff chances going forward. Speaking of playoff chances as well, Anna, a constant storyline that we'll be talking about throughout the season, so you might as well get used to it, about how optimistic or pessimistic you are of this team making the NHL playoffs for the first time since 2014. And like we mentioned off the top, we are looking at a Vancouver Canucks roster that is getting a little bit healthier day by day. We're going to solve the big conundrum that is facing this team, which is, what does the lineup look like once everybody's returned to full health? All that's coming up next here on the C4 podcast, CanucksHockeyBlog.com. So, Anna, a look at, maybe let's start with Saturday's game against the Washington Capitals. And it was an early one, of course. 9:30 was
9:30. I mean, that's only 12:30 in DC. Like, what are they doing?
As far as early games go, that has to be one of the earliest in recent memory that the Canucks fans have had to wake up for.
So, yeah, because I think the earliest they usually go is 10. We did have against Jersey and Rangers. Mm-hmm. They both started at 10. But the thing is, 10 a.m. is like the earliest places will open that will show a game. So
full disclosure, did you wake up in time for the start of this game?
Yeah, I hosted. I was up at 8 and I was cooking.
I don't know what that's like.
Cooking for my other fantasy hockey group. So
your other what?
Like the other fantasy group that
the
isn't
other
the
fantasy group.
Fantasy that isn't C4.
By the way, quick off the rails. Can someone please beat Anna in the C4 Fantasy Hockey League? She's like 7-0, I think, right now this season. She's the only undefeated team. Nexus 187 on Discord. He shaded me very narrowly in this week's matchup. But like I mentioned, Anna Forsyth 7-0, if you can believe it, in our C4 Fantasy Hockey League.
If it helps, I think I've won one.
It is
in my other one.
It is like I don't know how are you doing it? Like, do you want to give us a quick sneak peek on like who's on your roster? I know Shameless Canuck 03 is following us right now in Discord. He's listening live. The defending champ, if you will. He's having a bit of a tough season so far. I'm sort of in the middle of the pack at this moment as well. Everyone's sort of breathing down Anna's neck, but again, undefeated, if you can believe it.
I don't know. I mean, I've got McDavid.
That helps. It helps.
But I think it's just a lot of my middle-of-the-road guys are paying off. Like, they're kind of producing at a steady level. And I've had lots of injuries, but they seem to have been very short term, so I haven't been bit too hard with that.
Yeah. Getting back to the Vancouver Canucks versus Washington game, Anna, can I boldly suggest that despite it being just a 2-1 game, it was actually feeling like one of the best performances we saw from the Vancouver Canucks this season.
Yeah. I mean, defensively,
as far as like
very
complete
tight
team performances go, that felt very like it felt playoff-esque. You know what I mean?
Given the game where Caps came to Rogers and stole, 4 goals straight, 5 if you include overtime. We were bleeding goals against them, so to keep it so tight defensively and keep it such a close game, definitely impressive.
Jacob Markstrom, of course, standing on his head in that one. Can we take a quick second to just appreciate what Jacob Markstrom is doing in the face of what has been a very turbulent period in his life? Of course, for those who have followed the story, Jacob Markstrom losing his father to cancer not too long ago and continuing to play on this team, and not only playing but shining on this team. Your thoughts on how Markstrom has been doing under what has been quite an emotionally duress time?
Yeah, I mean, everyone reacts in different ways. You don't like to speculate too much about what he's actually going through. But he is, without a doubt, had a tough go of things. And he is, not faltered at all in his performance. He was out, 2 weeks and then not even a week. Mm-hmm. And he came right back to it. And, he's just done his job. And you can see how much it means to him after every game when he either performs or he doesn't. He really takes it to heart. So,
yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about Jacob Markstrom in one of our later segments in terms of contract talks. Elliot Friedman speculating that the Canucks and Markstrom's camp will sit down at some point in the not too distant future to talk about a possible contract extension. Other tidbits from that game, Anna. Can we take a moment to appreciate what Elias Pettersson does on that power play? That one-timer bomb that just blew past Braden Holtby. A thing of beauty, if you will.
Oh, definitely. And I think I do like Braden Holtby as a goalie, but he really didn't look his best on Saturday. So if anything, we could have tested him a bit more. But PD certainly looked very good on that one.
And I think it was, I believe I saw an article from TSN by Frank Saravelli just today talking about how Elias Pettersson has one of the best one-timers in the league. You talk about players who have found that success with the one-timer, Alex Ovechkin, Steven Stamkos, those two being the kings, if you will, of the one-timer. And he called Elias Pettersson the prince of the one-timer, Elias Pettersson being one of those next great players that can unleash that one-timer from the face-off circles, if you will. It has been a treat to watch the evolution and how far he's come. That one-timer looked just deadly on the weekend.
Right, and Canucks obviously changed up their power play a few weeks ago, and that kind of took away that opportunity from PD to unleash that. So it is nice to see him get the opportunity to, do that again.
I think the other thing that separates Pettersson from the likes of Ovechkin and Stamkos, Saravelli pointed out that Pettersson might actually have a higher degree of playmaking ability than those two players. I mean, Ovechkin, we know, is always a shoot-first kind of player, but Pettersson does have the vision and playmaking ability that gives himself just a little bit of separation, at least from Steven Stamkos.
Yeah, and I think, he's younger for one, so I think we have a lot to see. The fact that he's keeping up with these elite players so early in his career, I think that really shows, and I think he's, arguably not even reached his prime yet.
Other takeaways from this road trip, if you will, Anna, and we can talk about, those first few games. Bit of a mixed bag on that road trip. The Dallas Stars game, it was a 6-1 loss. Not a whole lot to take, but the Canucks didn't really come out for that one.
That was a depressing game to watch. I was literally in such a foul mood afterwards. My roommate asked me what was wrong. She thought something very bad had happened because I was just in such a foul mood. But it was just it was aggravating how much they just gave up.
Right. And I'll paint the scene from my perspective. I'm at home, I'm making dinner, I'm sort of watching the game as I'm making dinner. I'm like, oh yeah, it's a nice quiet night for myself. And I just felt pissed off, just like you did. Yeah. There was just a complete no-show, I thought, from the Canucks in that performance. They did not come out ready to play in that one, and the Stars just poured it on as the game went on, and of course they scored a couple meaningless goals towards the end there as well. But man, the Canucks just looked completely outmatched, and that's now 2 games where they looked pretty outmatched against the Dallas Stars, who we acknowledge have been very good as of late. But for all the negatives that we saw from the Dallas Stars game, the Canucks rebounded quite nicely against the Nashville Predators.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, once again, it does seem that the special teams are key. And
you think?
Yeah.
5 power play goals.
5 on 5, not so much dominating there, but the fact that they didn't get dominated either, and they put themselves in a position to score that those goals were, I think was really important. It was exciting to watch. They kept it disciplined when Nashville were kind of falling apart in that regard. Obviously, that can't be a style of play that you can keep on forever. But if you can bring it in big games like that, then yeah, that's satisfying.
Sticking with the power play, we have seen before the Nashville game that power play had been quite stagnant, if you will, not finding as much success as they had earlier in October. When you go 5 for 6 on the power play, is there a rhyme or reason why the Canucks started finding as much success as they did against the Nashville Predators? Or was this a case where the Vancouver Canucks just maybe changed a couple small details? I don't know how they managed to put 5 power play goals past Pekka Rinne that night.
Yeah, neither do I, necessarily. We do give Newell Brown a lot of criticism, and some of it well-deserved, but he has been able to roll with the punches quite well with the change in personnel that have come into the Canucks lineup recently. I think everyone was quite surprised when Tyler Graovac, how do you say his name?
Tyler Graovac.
Yeah, let's just kind of skip over that one. Scored that power play goal, Green included, but Newell Brown had been working on that with him. So, yeah, I was honestly just very impressed that they were able to stick to the system and make it work.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up, I believe it was Frank Saravelli's article again from TSN, and I know I've pumped that up 3 times now. They mentioned how everyone on that power play 1 unit, Brock Besser, Bo Horvat, JT Miller, and Quinn Hughes, they all seem to know that power play unit is Elias Pettersson's unit.
Right. Yeah, I think Elias Pettersson talked about that. Yeah, in the post game, I can't remember who asked him about it, but yeah, they were and Miller as well. But I think it can only serve the Canucks well to let Petey have that responsibility, because his hockey IQ is almost second to none. So if he is
Mm-hmm.
driving the bus on that, I think, and giving players that responsibility, definitely will be a good thing for the Canucks going forward.
Yeah, I think so. And the key word that you're using is that Pettersson is effectively quarterbacking that power play. It's his unit. He runs the direction. They know what to do under his direction. Obviously, Pettersson being on one of the top of the faceoff circles, it makes sense that he's sort of quarterbacking that power play. And you mentioned it, Anna, it's that as a second-year pro, he's already figuring out the responsibilities of shouldering a power play unit to himself. That's nothing but positives, and it's nice to see that Pettersson's taking that responsibility on. It's a responsibility he was going to get eventually, but it seems quite clear among those 4 teammates that play with him that they know who drives the bus. They know who's the focal point of that power play. It is a role that we hope Pettersson continues to embrace for the next 10 to 12 years and whatnot. So it is nice to see, and we're hoping for even more continued success from Power Play 1. Of course, it's not going to be 5 for 6 every night.
No.
But, this is a unit that we expect and hope will be a top 5 unit for the next foreseeable future.
Yeah, and I think, just to go back to Pettersson and I just think his hockey IQ is so good that that's exactly why you don't want a player like that in an official leadership position. Because he's just focusing entirely on his game. And sure, because he's a star player, he'll always be a focus for interviews and autographs and stuff like that. But I think as much as you can shut him out from having to provide any sort of bigger leadership role and just focus on his game and what he can do for the team and then the power play especially, I think that's just going to be better for him.
So, again, it's being Monday night, not talking too much tonight about the Philadelphia Flyers game the Vancouver Canucks are currently in. It is, 2-1 now for the Philadelphia Flyers. Jake Voracek scoring midway through the third period to give the Flyers that lead. We'll talk about, however, the rest of this road trip, Anna, and of course, it continues later in the week against the Pittsburgh Penguins, who just got Chris Letang back in their lineup, and concludes on Saturday against the Edmonton Oilers. We were here at this time last week talking before that road trip sort of began, that 6-game road trip, thinking maybe you'd feel better if we just got 2 wins out of it. Well, the Vancouver Canucks now have 2 wins already under their belt, so it seems like on the surface that everything beyond that is just gravy.
Yeah, I think we kind of said that 500 would be the result we'd want if we're still looking at the Canucks as a potential playoff team. And you have to kind of hang tough on with those Eastern Conference opponents as well, if you're like a legit playoff contender. I do think there's still some winnable games left on this road trip. I mean, if you beat the Caps, like, you really have put yourself out there as like a legit team. Obviously, we won't dwell too much on the Flyers game, but Flyers don't look amazing. The Canucks should be dominating them a little bit more than they are. Right,
and we're not obviously going to talk too much about the Flyers game, but the Canucks still within reach in this game, so it is still up for the taking. For me, I look at the Saturday one against the Edmonton Oilers as that must-win, if you will, just because that's a team that the Vancouver Canucks are obviously chasing. The Edmonton Oilers, number 1 in the conference for the first time, I believe, since 1990 at this point.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to think the wheels are going to come off that.
You think so, but here we are approaching December, and the Edmonton Oilers are still hanging around atop the conference. So at some point, they're no longer a mirage, if you will.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm ready to face up to that now. I mean, they have the best player in the league on their team.
Yeah.
So.
But from a pure chasing points, chasing teams perspective, I'm really looking at that Edmonton game as, you know, it's circled on my calendar, if you will.
Oh, yeah.
And you're looking to end that road trip on a positive note. Plus, you're coming back the very next night against those same Edmonton Oilers. I'm really hoping that the Canucks can steal 4 points in those 2 games.
That's huge if you win both of those, I think.
So
against a divisional opponent there.
So I'm hoping that the Canucks bring their best, and I'm sure they will bring their best on that Saturday night game against the Edmonton Oilers, but like, it's a primetime game, hockey night in Canada. You know, the country, for the most part anyway, the ones that are still awake, they're watching this game. You know, you look at Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl and what they're doing for the Edmonton Oilers, like, I feel like they're accounting for maybe 50% of their entire offense at this point. Like, it is a huge test for the Canucks. Have the Canucks even played the Oilers yet this year? Or has it been a while?
Yeah, we haven't played them as much as we usually do. That's, I guess, the reason for the
I feel like maybe we played them at the start of the season and haven't played since. It feels like a long time since we played the Edmonton Oilers.
It's been a minute.
It's been a minute. That's the term that they use. Yeah, it feels like it's been a while since the Canucks have played the Edmonton Oilers. If you were to put your, you know, fortune goggles on, if you will, what are you thinking the Canucks get out of the remainder of this road trip?
So we've got, is it just Pittsburgh?
Yep.
And Edmonton left?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna say 4 points.
More.
Yes.
4 more points, right. Pittsburgh's gotten better. They got Chris Letang back in the lineup.
I'm predicting, I mean, that could be 2 loser points and a win.
Yeah.
Or 2 wins.
I'm thinking they'll get 3.
3. Yeah.
But again, like, if you're getting 6 points out of a possible 12 in total?
Yeah. 6 times 2 is 12. Good
No. They have 4 so far on this road trip. So if they get another 3, you're getting 7 out of the
12.
I would have taken that at this point.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I mean, we said we were like, we'd be over the moon with 8.
Yeah.
But I think
7 is a win, though. I think
7 is a win.
6 is acceptable.
Yes.
But anything less than that is kind of a failure at this point.
Yeah, I think it definitely, takes the
luster off.
away from the argument of Canucks being a
Right.
playoff team for sure.
We'll take a bit of a break. When we come back, we'll talk about lineup discussion, and this is really the meat of the podcast, is how do you fix this lineup when you have so many forwards in your lineup? All coming up next here on the C4 podcast, CanucksHockeyBlog.com.
Take hitting out of the game. You can't hit anymore, so don't do it.
The unsportsmanlike conduct, I want to get an explanation on it.
No kidding.
Because how do you get suspended for unsportsmanlike conduct?
Plus interference. There's no interference there. He had the puck.
Now, Madison never ever did that before. Now, why did he do it? Because he was mad.
Well, your early favorite for the Calder Trophy, that's for sure. Elias Pettersson, you might even say your early favorite for the Hart Trophy.
Just to get back to your question, Elias is going to play plenty. He's going to get a lot of power play time, and yeah, I'm concerned about our offense. We lost 200-point players, and we've got to find a way to score.
So the Canucks away on the longest road trip of the season, but that means they're back in Rogers soon for a little homestand, and what we're offering is a chance to get your tickets for any of those home games with Vivid Seats.
I'm looking to go to a game on December 12th, by the by.
December 12th?
Yeah.
So you're going to hit up the Vivid Seats app for that. Yeah, because really, like, it's coming up to Christmas. Are you going to maybe give that as a gift?
A little gift to myself.
Yeah, okay, I was going to say, Matt doesn't have any friends to go
Playing
with.
the Carolina Hurricanes, by the way.
Nice.
Bunch of jerks versus team like that.
I mean, the Canes are fun. Like, you can't get around that. So I might be looking for another little game as a Christmas treat there. I am already going to 2 games in December, but you know what? Like, I work hard. Like, let's maybe give myself a little extra treat. But I don't think I could be affording it unless it was for someone like Vivid Seats. So I will be hitting up the Vivid Seats app. I'll be entering the promo code OVERTIME, and then you can save up to $100. Might also check out some other live events, non-hockey events, some concerts going on.
Celine Dion, she's coming to town.
Maybe not that one.
The farewell tour? What? You're not a big Celine fan?
I like her as a person. I'm not sure her music is my thing, but there's plenty of other concerts. I'm
Power of Love?
More of an indie kid.
Because You Love Me?
Okay, so Matt is going to Celine Dion, and
It's all coming back to me now?
You and Adam can go to that. And me and Chris will go to something better.
Celine Dion is a national treasure. I would like to point that out.
I think she is.
And I will be looking at the Vivid Seats app to see if I can cash in on some good Celine Dion tickets.
You and Adam have a little date.
You know it. Thank you for that, Anna. So the Vancouver Canucks, before tonight's game against the Philadelphia Flyers, mentioned Jay Beagle day-to-day. Michael Furlan will join the team in Pittsburgh tomorrow. It sounds like Antoine Roussel is headed to Utica for a short conditioning stint as well. Tyler Mott still at least a couple weeks away. But there you have it, Anna. You have 3 forwards who are getting close to returning to the Vancouver Canucks. Brandon Sutter still... Did I say it's Brandon Sutter already? Day-to-day?
You didn't, but he's still
He's also
day-to-day.
still... Like, you have effectively 4 players who are about a week away from returning, plus another one 2 weeks away. It suddenly gets very crowded in the Vancouver Canucks lineup.
Yeah. Big time. Canucks are going to have to make a decision and figure it out. That's going to be a tricky one, that's for sure, because there is a lot of Jags in this lineup that can do 3rd or 4th line jobs.
I'm just trying to figure out... First of all, let's figure out what are the easy sort of lineup decisions that this team can make at this point. Let me ask you this first one. Is it an easy decision by virtue of his contract that Adam Gaudette should be one of the first players sent down? I mean, this is assuming the easy ones like Tyler Graovac and Zach McEwen are sent down as well.
Yeah, and I think, by the way, that's the reason they're playing so much, is that they're about to go down.
So, back on Gaudette. Is Gaudette one of the first casualties of this team getting healthy?
Honestly, I'm not sure. That, like, I know we need to make, like, more than one decision, but Adam Gaudette has been playing really well.
Mm-hmm.
And he just drives to the net really easily, and he's kind of like that player that we hoped Jake would be, where he's just like putting the pucks on net, driving to the net. So I don't think I can, in good conscience, say that we should send him down.
Okay, well, we'll get back to that in a second. What about this other quote-unquote easy decision? What do you do with Louis Eriksson when these 4 forwards come back to full health?
I just think, given how crowded it's going to be, given you're going to have to make some rough decisions, and there might be casualties, and there might be people going down who don't necessarily deserve to, but they're just getting squeezed out, how can you justify keeping Louis, thanks for coming, Eriksson on the roster?
That's what his friends call him. Thanks for coming.
I mean, just to take tonight's game in a microcosm, he had a hit credited, then taken away because it was him that got hit. That was his first contribution this season, and it was actually not a real thing.
Okay, so moving beyond those 2 quote-unquote easy decisions, you have Louis Eriksson at least not in the starting 12. Is that safe to say?
Yeah.
Do you have him in the press box as an extra forward at this point, though?
I say no. Like, what's the point anymore?
So is the best decision to waive him and send him to Utica and save that $1 million and free up that one roster spot?
And I've said this from the beginning, not so much for the cap space, it's for the message that, like, he hasn't tried.
And he's also had, like, let's be clear here. Louis Eriksson has had opportunities in this lineup while there have been injuries.
For example.
It's not like he's getting 30 seconds of playing time, or as I call it, the Podkolzin in the KHL treatment. Like, he's getting minutes. Maybe not meaningful minutes, but he's getting maybe 8 minutes per game to try and show something to Travis Green.
And there's no effort. It's not like he's getting unlucky. It's not a lack of puck luck. The effort's just not there. So, like, free up the roster spot. Who cares about the cap? The cap is, like, space issue is negligible, right?
Right. So give me your top line right now, assuming that you have Tyler Mott, that you have Tim Schaller, that you have Jay Beagle, that you have Brandon Sutter, all back and healthy.
Miller, PD, Besser.
Okay. And we can acknowledge that maybe you juggle Miller down to the second line. You
if
might have
needed,
someone else.
But I wouldn't. Yeah, like, I'd start him as a.
So if you have Miller, Pettersson, and Besser as your first line, who's on your second?
Pearson.
Yep.
Bo.
Yep.
Maybe Gaudette on the wing. Maybe.
Yep.
Just because I don't want to, like, have him squeezed out just for lack of a center spot.
Yep. And then on your third line, and this is where you start to get into the point where you have to integrate some of those players who are returning from injuries back into your lineup. So that third line, how does it look in your mind?
I
haven't been this uncomfortable since I sat in a booth with Chris.
I was going to say, I haven't been this uncomfortable since they first closed the door when we were stuck in here together. I think you've got to have Sutter centering in that third line.
Yep.
Maybe you put Michael Furland on the left. I don't really like it.
And who's on the right?
Jake.
Okay. So some of the notable omissions that you currently have, off the top of my head, you've got Josh Levo missing. You've got Antoine Roussel missing. You've got Jay Beagle, Tyler Mott, Tim Schaller.
Okay, I'm going to say... Okay, actually, do you know what I would rather do?
Okay, here we go.
But I know it would never happen, is that I put Levo on the third line and put Furland on the fourth line.
Okay.
With Sutter and, not Sutter, Beagle and...
Roussel. So that means Tim Schaller, Tyler Mott.
Yeah.
All extras at this point?
Yeah. I mean...
Where do you have Virtanen again?
On the third line.
So it would be Virtanen, Sutter, and Levo?
Yeah, maybe we need to put Furland there. it's going to be like one of Felland and Levo.
Right. I mean, you're splitting hairs when you're talking
Yes,
about placement
exactly.
in terms of who's on the third and who's on the fourth. But the important thing that you're trying to stress is that all things considered, all players healthy, you would have Tim Schaller and Tyler Mott in the press box. You would have Louis Eriksson, Adam Gaudette, Sven Berchi, as well as Zach McEwen and
I know. I've been
Tyler Grayovac in Utica.
I've been waving the flag for Berchi big time. I just think he's not been given the chance to be the player that Travis Green wants him to be.
Do you think that he's not given the chance?
Yes. How many times has he been scratched since he's back?
Berchi?
Yeah.
Yeah, a few times for sure.
Yeah.
And what's the averaging in terms of ice time, though? I mean, I'll let you look it up, but
yeah, okay.
I'll buy you some time while you look it up. I don't know if I agree, though. I think Sven Berchi, in my mind, from what I've gathered, is a square peg trying to fit into a round hole from Travis Green. Is Sven Berchi, like I said, the kind of guy who could have helped us back in 2017-18 when we had a lack of top-end talent? Yes. But is Sven Berchi now still serviceable when you have top six options in JT Miller and Brock Besser all in your lineup? That's where it gets tricky for me. I think the time has come and gone for Sven Berchi to be on this Canucks roster, and it does pain me to say it because I'm not taking anything away from him as a player who has come back from some very serious injuries, but if the Canucks were to explore a trade option, I feel like Sven Berchi would be the likeliest candidate.
Yeah.
Do you have some stats on how much he has been playing?
No. I'm getting there. But I think it is decent. I don't think he's been relegated in his time. If someone has faster internet than me, please feel free to jump in. Yeah. I do see what you're saying. I just wonder if you look at the roster as a whole, and the people that are I guess that's what I'm more thinking of, that when you look at the roster as a whole, are they is Sven Berchi really less deserving of a place than people on the bottom end of this?
Yeah. For the record, Sven Berchi has averaged anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes every game he has been playing. So he has been getting, what can we say, at least middle 6 minutes?
Right. Middle 6, yeah. I'm just wondering, I think you're right in that he probably has some trade value, whereas a lot of the players in
I'm not willing to trade Jake Virtanen or when it comes to Virtanen or Sven Berchi.
Right. I just look at someone like Levo and I'm wondering if he is just a Pearson light.
I think Pearson has effectively taken his place at this point too.
I think I'd agree with that. I guess I'm wondering is there a spot on the third line for him?
No.
You didn't think so?
I think if you, and I know this has been quite a divisive player in Discord, but if you ask me to pick between Josh Levo and Sven Berchi, I'm still taking Josh Levo.
I don't know if I can do it as easy, but that's maybe just because I think he's been hard done by this season. But then maybe just because he's been hard done by doesn't necessarily mean that he deserves a spot. Just,
I mean, thank you for your lineup, and I'll quickly.
I mean, was that a lineup? It was just.
Well, I know, and we acknowledge first of all that this is a very hard decision to make, and no one is envious of how the Vancouver Canucks are going to figure this out. I'll quickly say that I have the same top line as you, Miller, Pedersen, and Besser. I have Pearson, Horvat, and Virtanen on the second line at this point. I know he's been getting some looks on the second line and most recently played on the fourth, but still holding out hope that maybe we're seeing a bit of a turning of the corner for Jake Virtanen. I have Roussel, Sutter, and Ferland on the third line because I want to see that just for the lulls of Roussel and Ferland on one line.
That's something.
And I have Tyler Mott penciled into the fourth line because I know he's a Travis Green guy.
Yeah, I just think one of Schaller, Mott, Beagle, someone has to sit in that kind of Jag group, right? 2 of them have to sit at least.
Yeah. I I'm right there with you. Like, I'm not the biggest Tyler Mott backer, but Travis Green does seem to have some sort of fascination with having Tyler Mott or Tim Schaller in his lineup for reasons I cannot explain. If I were to have,
I'm not arguing that. Like, yeah.
If I were to
Green
have my
seems
way,
to like him.
I personally wouldn't mind to see Tyler Mott get waived. I don't know what value he brings.
Yeah.
I really don't.
Okay, well, I think we're agreed on that. That's what perspective I'm coming from.
I've kind of actually turned the corner a little bit on what Tim Schaller brings to the table. Like, Tim Schaller, in his way, is quite an effective fourth-line player. And this is, of course, acknowledging, like, he scored a few goals this year, which is more than he's done last season.
Okay, but yeah, that was, I think, a brief hot streak not to be repeated.
But for me, I just think all roads lead to Adam Gaudette being sent back to Utica.
Yeah, honestly. Just
but
because of ease of contract.
In terms of contracts and cap management, it's the easiest thing to do. And I think if you're Jim Benning and you're Travis Green, you're telling Adam Gaudette not to be discouraged from it, and that there are going to be injuries, which will necessitate him being called right back up not far from now. But Gaudette is a victim of the numbers. He's a victim of his contract, and he does seem like the easiest to go. As much as I was here last week saying Gaudette has cemented his role in this lineup.
But he hasn't stopped playing well. I would love to see him stay. Even in a winger role, maybe even preferably in a winger role. Yeah, I'd love to see him stay in the lineup. It's upsetting when you just get Jags hanging around when you do see a decent talent in someone like Gaudette. But yeah, he does seem to like Tyler Mott a lot. We don't know what we have in Ferland. I know we're hoping he is a top end player, but we just don't know yet.
Any chance that there's a trade in the offing?
I don't know. I don't know if Jim has the
mental fortitude.
Yeah, I mean, Canucks are in a tight spot. So what kind of team is going to just help them out? They would have to take a L somewhere in that.
Yeah.
This is the problem when you let it get to the stage where you're already in a tight spot.
We knew that this was going to be a problem as soon as Roussel was close to returning, though. We've had time to speculate and prepare, and I'm sure Jim has had time to prepare, but here we are on the eve of Antoine Roussel returning to the lineup, and we still don't have a solution.
Yeah.
Jim Benning was probably looking at it like, well, that's for future Jim to worry about. Well, future Jim is here, and it's still not figured out.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to take a bit of a break. We'll come back talking about playoffs. Playoffs? Are you kidding me? Playoffs? You know where that's from, right?
No.
Never mind.
He liked to say the F word.
Oh, then get the here then. Okay, see ya.
Is going to have the F word on it.
I wish I could give you an explanation about it. I can't. You, out of here.
You said the F word, Dad.
You called me the F word.
Yes, I did mix up the segments, Anna.
Once again, it's just you write these down in an order.
Speaking
I don't
of
come
which,
up with the order.
You didn't understand the playoffs reference.
No.
I would like to say a special shout out to Annalise, friend of the show, who mentioned to me on Twitter that she understood the Office reference that I dropped last week.
Yeah.
So even your friends have better pop culture taste than
I
you.
tried with The Office. It's just nowhere near as good as the British one.
Okay, let's settle down there. Simmer down.
Okay.
Nowhere near as good.
It's not.
So the Vancouver Canucks, Anna, heading into tonight anyway, holding down third place in the Pacific Division. We've seen that they're, 4, 5, and 3 thus far in November. So it's not a great month, if you will. That's well documented.
Definitely not.
But have you seen anything from the Vancouver Canucks through the first 25 or so games of the NHL regular season for you to take a stance one way or the other if this team is going to make the playoffs?
I've always been saying that they're a bubble team. If anything, I'm gonna say that, like, we've maybe dropped in my estimation to become, like, just missing out on the playoffs. But I don't know. We're still not out of it, right? We're still in third place in the Pacific.
Yep.
I think Colorado have a game up on us, but yeah, I don't see anything that convinces me that, like, we're gonna make the playoffs.
Interesting.
Are you getting positive?
So here's
is
the thing.
positive Matt coming out again?
It is positive Matt, but I number one, look at the teams that the Vancouver Canucks are competing with in the postseason. I don't think anyone really expected the Edmonton Oilers to be this good this late.
Yeah.
The Vegas Golden Knights are currently holding on, I believe, to one of the last playoff wild card spots.
Yep.
The Calgary Flames, I don't think anyone expected that for them to take this much of a regression.
Yeah, San Jose too. I think people expected them to drop a bit, maybe not.
Well, they had a very bad October, but they've been turning it around a little bit more lately. I just think, given all of that and how kind of messy the whole situation is, the Canucks do have a fighting chance at the playoffs.
Sure. It's just like if the form of the teams below us continues. Because it's less than a third of the way through.
But
don't forget.
As well, like, if the Vancouver Canucks can have what we can describe as a piss-poor November and still be holding on to a playoff spot, like only a couple points, if you will, behind the Edmonton Oilers with a game in hand, like, if they can have a mediocre November and still be in it, I think that shows that they still have the chops to make the playoffs, and they're getting back to full health.
Yeah, I mean, we said it last week too. How the lineup kind of adjusts with the insertion of these new players will be, like, completely key, I think, going down the road, because we did say that we thought the injuries might be more serious. As they usually are for Canucks in
like Alex
the
Edler.
winter months.
Like, I thought he was done for another month after the Washington game.
We thought Chris Tanev was broken. No.
Again? Which time?
Yeah, exactly. He just keeps on rebuilding.
So, I don't know. It's very difficult, but if I had to pick, I still would say that the Canucks are a wild card team at worst.
At worst? Wow.
Like, I'm not exactly... Oh, I kind of do, actually, though. I was going to say, I'm not looking forward to a Vancouver versus Edmonton first-round series, but I kind of want to see that.
Oh, yeah, that would be super fun.
I would not like to see Connor McDavid for 7 games, though.
Oh, yeah, but I feel like it would be a good
Why don't you just jump into my nightmares, Connor McDavid, star of the Anna fantasy team?
Yeah, he is.
So if you had to take a stance, though, you're still thinking that they missed the playoffs?
Yeah, I don't think still. Like, if you push me previously, I would say they're making it. But I'm just hopping either side here.
I know,
like, I'm so close to the fence.
You're just straddling that fence like a real fence sitter.
But if you push me, I will fall off the fence, and I'm saying no playoffs.
Yeah,
at this stage. But it's going to change every single week, I think.
I think so, too. And a couple more bits and bobs before we wrap things up here on the C4 podcast. Elliot Friedman over the weekend saying that the Vancouver Canucks and Jacob Markstrom's camp are expected at some point in the not-too-distant future to talk contract extension. This seems to be the first time, really, that we're hearing word that both sides are committed to hopefully getting something done. Let me ask you, what does Jacob Markstrom's contract look like if you were to put pen to paper?
I mean, we've seen him, like, once again command, like, the net. Like, whenever he's called upon, he's, like, puts in a commanding performance. But he does have that Demko really nipping at his heels. Like, including today, he's had a good performance again. But whether he's ready to be number one, I don't think that's necessarily true. So what's Marky on at the moment? 3 point something?
Yeah, I think he's at 3.5.
3 point something. Okay, it's 3.5. I mean, I think you try and spend big to keep term low.
Yep.
That's what I would do.
5 years?
I would rather not.
It seems like a lot.
That seems like a lot.
I don't know. How old is Jacob Markstrom? I think he's turning around 27 now. I'll look it up. But what's the most term you would give to Jacob Markstrom if you were the Canucks?
Well, he had
29, by the way. So
yeah,
he's actually,
I think 3 years.
He's already, at least, if not in his prime, past his prime, or getting towards.
Yeah, I think
he's approaching the back 9, if you will, of his career.
Don't know what that means. But yeah, he hasn't dropped off yet. That's for sure. He's still definitely playing at the top of his game, I think. So arguably his prime is yet to come, but I doubt that we're going to see a huge leap forward. So I think you want to keep under 3 years, don't you?
I think so too, but I don't know how much he'd be willing to do that.
That's the thing. That's his current contract is 3. So
I think he's looking for his one big payday, so to speak, because he hasn't really had that yet.
Yeah.
I think Markstrom's camp probably wants that 5-year term that I'd mentioned, or more. And I would be kind of skittish to give that to him if I was Jim Benning.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Because you have Thatcher Demko here, right now.
And it's
getting
definitely
close to entering his prime.
That is exactly right. We are saying that it's within 1 or 2 years that Thatcher Demko becomes number 1, right?
Right. So what you're saying is you're open to a contract extension with Jacob Markstrom, but you're hoping that the Canucks have more leverage in this particular case because they have Demko, because they have Mikey DiPietro, because Jacob Markstrom is 29 years old.
Well, yes. I definitely think they have the backup.
Right.
But I can see the resistance from Jacob Markstrom. He's 29 years old, taking another 3-year contract. Mm-hmm. It's just so risky for him because then it's just he could so easily be done after that if his play drops off in the last year.
Right. So if you were to gaze into your crystal ball, what does the future look like for Jacob Markstrom, say, in 2020?
I mean, I would say that he should be stepping back at that point, right? Not that, I mean, and I mean by that next season, 2020, that should be...
Is he still a Canuck in 2020?
Yes. Start of next season? Yes.
I don't know.
But
I see a scenario where he's not here.
I just think you still can get some value out of him. And ideally you want to keep under 3 years if possible. But then again, if he wants the longer term, then there might be more leverage to keep the dollars down, and then that might be a more tradable contract.
Here's the thing, what we could do.
Okay.
The Vancouver Canucks, there is a scenario where the Canucks could sign Markstrom to a contract, expose him during expansion, and protect Thatcher Demko.
Right. You have to protect Thatcher.
There might be some hesitation on Seattle's part to take a goaltender of Jacob Markstrom's kind of contract if they were to give him, say, that 5-year contract.
Right. But that's a big risk, right?
It is a risk.
But I think you have to protect Thatcher Demko, and you can't protect 2 goalies. That's just...
So you're without question, whether he's here or not, no matter what contract he is, you're protecting Thatcher Demko at the expansion draft over Jacob Markstrom.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Aren't you?
I would, but I'm
that was
trying
a weird voice.
I'm processing in my head if there would be some interest in Seattle to take Jacob Markstrom.
I mean, the thing is...
I don't know what other goaltenders could be available at the expansion draft, but I'd imagine Markstrom would be on that short list.
Sure.
I don't think anyone wants Corey Schneider, let's put it that way.
I mean, probably won't be in the NHL at that point, so... I don't think you can take AHL goalies, can you? No. So, that's the thing, and given the lack of, value goalies get, signing to trade is quite a big ask as well. But I guess you're not signing to trade, you're just, having the trade option down the way.
You know who I could see being available in the expansion draft? A bit off the rails.
Sure.
Braden Holtby.
How's he now?
I mean, he's fine, but you got Ilya Samsonov in the backup spot, and he's obviously young. It's a very similar situation to what the Canucks have with Markstrom and Demko.
Right. Yeah, he's still pretty good, and he's 30 now. So
it's not entirely far fetched. Anyway,
he's younger than I thought, though.
Yeah,
he has a very grizzled face.
Yeah, so
imagine he's eaten some pucks.
I think.
Throughout the years.
And Bearded Canuck just bringing this up in Discord today. I believe Holtby is a unrestricted free agent as well after this season, so that isn't also part of the deal. Right. So again, even more sort of same situation as Jacob Markstrom and Thatcher Demko. Anna, as we wrap things up here on the C4 podcast, any last thoughts?
No, I'm just excited to see out the rest of this road trip, and yeah, by the time we talk next, I think we'll definitely see what the sort of real Canucks look like.
Yep. And a reminder that you can find the C4 podcast on Twitter at the C4 podcast. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/the C4 podcast, on the web, c4podcast.com. And as always, encouraging you to join us on Discord. You can find us at bit.ly/C4 Discord. That's in all caps. Again, bit.ly/C4 Discord, all caps. That is where you can find us. My last thoughts, I am again just hoping for another 3 points from this road trip. The Vancouver Canucks dropping a 2-1 decision of the Philadelphia Flyers. So now officially 2-2 on this road trip, if my memory serves correctly.
Yeah, they've lost to Dallas and Philly now.
So currently batting .500, hoping for at least one more win between Pittsburgh and Edmonton. And Vancouver Canucks will return home on Sunday for a back-to-back, or the end of a home-and-home series with the Edmonton Oilers. Anna, on behalf of the C4 podcast, on behalf of Chris Golden, who's not here, and at Adam Ovenel-Carter, we're out.
Thanks for listening to the C4 podcast on CanucksHockeyBlog.com.